This is Jimmy Bullard, aka the Bulldog, and you are listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham.
Hello and welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name is Jmac, your host, reporting from my country estate after a jolly good shoot today, hunting stag and partridge, sitting on my Chesterfield sofa, dipping my virgin olive oil breadstick in some venison pate. Meanwhile, it's tiger stew on the menu for good old Fulham. First 3 points from Hull since 1996. Not the prettiest, but the job has been done. The lineup, the players, the goal, and a certain injury, which hopefully won't derail our promotion push too badly, because, folks, the gap is closing. We are here to talk about it. With me, the Prince of Stats himself, Master Statto, and the other bloke is a man who needs no introduction, but nonetheless, it's only the Walter White, the Tony Soprano, the Basil Fawlty of the entire Fulham Focus family. It's Dannyboi. With you after this.
Fulham.
Right. 3 points. In all honesty, I didn't expect that. I thought this had draw written all over it. It seems like it's a Parker in week this week. But let's start from the very beginning. A very good place to start. Dannyboi, mate, anything that stood out to you from the lineup?
Yeah, how you doing, Jmac? You all right?
I'm good, mate. Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, same. Good stuff. Yeah, I suppose the two obvious changes were Brian was left on the bench again. Adoya played at left back. And Kcom came back in, which I think has come out of nowhere. He obviously hasn't played a lot of football recently. That clearly states that Harriata wasn't fully fit. And I think it was tactical. Hull was obviously a difficult place to go. They did the double over Sheffield Wednesday, double over Forest. They drew away with Brentford earlier in the season. And, of course, they beat us 3-0. So they're not mugs. And it was a vital game. If we had lost that one, we'd be talking a completely different game for Parker now. They were only 3 points behind us. So I think he went with Jmac shielding the back four to keep it tighter at the back. And I think the aim was always to have little shots on target, both ends of the pitch, just to be a bit more resilient. And Adoya coming in at left back gave us more pace, more height, and that's why there was a lack of crosses coming in either side of the flanks, because we had Hector supporting Christie and we had Adoya supporting Ream. I was quite happy with the lineup.
What about you, Stato? I mean, I completely agree with what Danny said there. I mean, Joe Bryan bench. Do you think that worked for us tactically? I mean, Adoya seemed to keep Jared Bowen at bay a little bit.
Yeah, hello. First of all, hello.
Hello, mate.
Hello. I think a lot of what Danny said, I'd like to echo. Joe Bryan, throughout the season, we've kind of seen going forward, yeah, he's great, but at the back, he's a bit susceptible to, a counter-attack from the opposition side. So, when we're playing away to a team like Hull, who are floating around the playoffs, they're quite a physical side. I think bringing in Adoya was a pretty good move. At an expense, it made our defence a bit more compact. It wasn't as attacking as we'd like it, but that was fine, because in an away game like this, we're going to need that type of defence to soak up the pressure. And I think that's also why, like Danny said, that's why we brought in a player like McDonald, who hasn't started many games throughout this year, but he was kind of almost the perfect player to have in a game like this. The only other thing from the starting lineup that was a bit shocking is the exclusion of Kearney. He was on the bench, but he didn't even come on. I guess maybe he just needed a rest or something. There's been a lot of games in the last few weeks, so it's good to see that he isn't injured. He isn't just mugging off away games. He's just there. He just needs a rest, and ultimately we didn't need him. But other than that, it was a pretty solid lineup.
I just want to touch on what Stato said there about Kearney.
Yeah, go on.
Well, he's missed quite a few of the recent away games. And again, I think it was tactical not to play him. I don't think he's got the legs to play in midfield if you're playing on the counter-attack, which is what we were doing quite a lot of the time. And if you're sitting back, soaking up pressure and then, trying to catch people on the break, you need legs in midfield. And although he's not the greatest of players, Josh Onomah, I think, plays because he's got more energy and a bit more pace about him than all the other players have. So that, for me, that is the main reason Kane doesn't play, is because I don't think he's got the energy to run around the pitch in an away game.
Yeah, I thought Josh Onomah was very good. Actually, I noticed in this game it was almost like a double number 10 role going on for him and for Bobby Reid going forward with McDonald shielding them, which we mentioned earlier. Do you think Joe Bryan on the bench now could be his destiny, Statto? I mean, do you think this could be him trying to evolve back as a winger like he was with Bristol City all those years ago, or something that we only use him for when we go 3 at the back, or just purely tactical?
I don't think it's a permanent thing for him. The thing with football is football isn't a static sort of thing. Like one starting 11 doesn't mean that's going to be our permanent starting 11 going forward. I think for the whole game, it's purely a tactical thing. Going forward, if now we've got Hector coming in, we could play a back 5 and Brian playing as a wing back role. We saw in the last this game and the FA Cup game that he was playing as more of a winger, more of a midfield role. Maybe that's what Scott sees him more as, because, we were leaking a lot of goals down the right-hand side, and maybe that's an area he's looking to address by kind of moving Brian further forward and playing him kind of not giving him as many defensive responsibilities. And yeah, to be fair to Odoi, he's been really good. I mean, up until that Preston red card, he was actually having a pretty solid game at left-back, and I think he played in left-back the game before that as well. And the thing with Odoi is we need to remember that he's always been a very solid championship fullback. It was only when we got to the Premier League and he was forced to play as centre-back that people started to, not rate him as much. But, in my opinion, he's always just been a solid championship level player in fullback or occasionally at centre-back.
Yeah, and I always forget that actually Dennis Odoi's original position that we bought him for was left back. We've always seen him on the right recently, and obviously as a centre back. But I just always forget it's actually left back, which is his primary position that we bought him for all those seasons ago. But lastly, with the lineup, Danny, did you notice? Well, I think we all noticed that Marcus Bettinelli nowhere to be seen. I think it was Magnus Norman there instead. Is that the alarm bells then for his departure? Do you think?
Yeah, obviously the rumours have been there for a few weeks now. And our results have clearly picked up. I mean, you remember to the start of the season, although Bettinelli wasn't having to do an awful lot, he wasn't saving anything. And every week you name a couple of vital saves that Rodak makes. And that for me is the complete difference between the two. Rodak's a match winner. I think Bettinelli's at a stage of his career where he's played second fiddle to David Button and to Corrali and a number of other goalkeepers. He's never quite held down the number 1 role, even when he's been given chances. So, what is he, 27, 28? I think it's probably time for him to move on. I wouldn't be surprised. And I could hardly blame him. At his age, he needs to be playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like it could potentially be Middlesbrough, the team we're facing on Friday, that he could be going to, if it's true that West Ham are going to be buying Darren Randolph off of them. But we'll see. Talking of goalkeepers, you can sometimes only be as good as the defence in front of you. I just want to go to you, Statto, with the centre-back situation. I mean, Michael Hector looked good this game. I thought maybe slightly off the pace here and there. I just want to get your opinion on who do you think, after seeing both Ream and Mawson with Hector, who do you think is the most long-term outcome for standing next to Michael Hector?
It's funny, isn't it? I think at the start of the season, we were looking at Bettinelli in goal, Stephen Sess at right back, and then Ream, Mawson, Bryan. And we're now halfway through, and then suddenly that all but one player has suddenly changed what our best defence is. We have Rodak and Go, who is definitely our number 1. Christie's kind of solidifying right back with each game that goes by. Odoi at left back, obviously. And now Hector's come in, and he's only played 2 games, but he's kind of given off that kind of confidence that we've needed in defence. And when we look at defences in general, so you look at the good defences over the years for various teams, Liverpool, for example, there's always like a an alpha centre-back. So in Liverpool's case, it's Van Dijk. If we want to do a Fulham-related example, we look at Hangeland and Hughes. Hangeland was kind of always the alpha centre-back. Hughes, always the one next to him. And I think we've kind of lacked that since the Hangeland-Hughes era, like just a big kind of alpha centre-back who can command the defence, can command the goalkeeper and the midfield. And I've seen Hector come in and he's kind of looking like that player that we've needed. There was a moment when Hull kind of got a ball into the box and it kind of did a bit of pinball and we got it out. The first thing Hector did, he turned around, he shouted at Roldak saying he should have come off his line quicker, shouted at the defence and just kind of got them in order. And, that's great to see. That's what we want to see. And in terms of who would play next to him, I think long-term going forward, Mawson is probably the answer. Mawson, he was actually quite a good defender at Swansea, and that could have been because, he was kind of more of the secondary centre-back almost. And if he has a good big commander and defender like Hector next to him, Mawson could potentially flourish. And I think going forward, nice to have Ream as well, because Ream is also quite a solid centre-back at this level.
Yeah, I'd like to come in on that on Hector. I mean, I don't really have the answer for who he should partner, but I've got to say, it's refreshing to have someone with the height and the speed at the back. And I think they are the two things that are the most alarming about the partnership between Ream and Mawson. And there was one example, I think his name's Grzycki, the winger for Hull. And he was driving down the flank and Christie was out of position and he was one-on-one with Hector. And Hector was trying to show him down the outside. And normally he would take him on. Because I think that's a big part of Hull's game is getting to the byline and crossing it. And instead he opted to cut inside. And it made Hector look a bit clumsy because he beat him inside and got the shot away. But that for me is a big example of the advantage we've got playing Hector there. If that had been Mawson or Ream, they would have taken him on for pace and then they would have been in behind. But instead, he opted to cut inside into the crowd and take a pot shot. So for me, I think it's going to stop the amount of times teams get in behind us, having Hector at the back.
Well, 2 appearances and 2 wins. I mean, hopefully that continues. I mean, hopefully he'll actually be the man that we all want him to be. Now, let's talk about the one shot on target we had in this game, which was the only goal on the 29th minute. And it was Cavallero's goal, which is fantastic. It's another worldie from Cavallero, Statto. Talk me through it.
I mean, it's just common practice for Cavallero now, isn't it? You see him out on the left. If a defender gives him like a yard of space for him to cut in on his right, you can just expect a shot to go top bins in the far right. And that's exactly what happened. The build-up to the goal is pretty good. I've noticed Ream pumping a ball forward. It's quite refreshing to see him do a long ball rather than just a little passing around. There was a bit of ping-pong, went to knockout. In classic knockout fashion, he tried to take it on, didn't pass it. Unfortunately, he came out to Cavallero. And then he just cut in. You look at the replays and the way it dipped, the way it swerved, it was just a quality finish.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you notice Knockout, still trying to do it all in the build-up to that goal and it ricocheting back to him. I mean, without Knockout essentially messing up, we wouldn't have had that goal, but it was still wonderful in the eye. Danny, I want to go to you with this question. Was this a bad game of football to watch? Because I can't really tell. I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, the weather conditions weren't the best. I mean, Hull were about as toothless as we were, don't you think?
I mean, it wasn't the greatest, I've got to be honest, but to be honest with you, for me, there's been a little bit of negativity I've seen towards the way Fulham played, and maybe they should have seen the game off quicker, had more shots on target, etc., etc. But like I said at the beginning, Hull, they did a double over Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday's just beaten Leeds away. They did a double over Forest. They didn't lose when they played Brentford away. They battered us 3-0. They are no mugs. And for me, as the home team, it was their responsibility to take the game to us. And they just didn't turn up. So Fulham managed the game in a way that they should have managed plenty of other games in the past. I mean, if we had played like that against Barnsley away, we probably would have won that one 1-0. So there's a lot of naive cracks that are starting to disappear from our game. Parker's slowly getting an idea of what his best 11 is. Obviously, injuries haven't helped. And this is all coming from someone who isn't a Parker fan. So, but I think we can't keep on looking at the bad side. I don't really care that we didn't play well in this game. In some ways, I think with the weather being bad, Hull's quite a grim place to go. There's many occasions in the past that we wouldn't have turned up and we would have got rolled over. It's not that long ago we lost 6-0 to Hull in the Premier League. So to go there and grind out a result, I think is the bread and butter of what makes a top 2 side. You can't batter everybody. So I was content with it being a rubbish game. The important thing was the points.
I agree, and it was good to see us be a lot more pragmatic. I mean, McDonald was a good example of that. Like we mentioned earlier, played as the classic CDM, went back as almost a centre-back position at times, but he made these lovely long balls that the wingers would collect on either side. And he was honestly like the old McDonald in that role, and it made us a lot more careful. I've got to say, you mentioned, Danny, we haven't had the best time of injuries. Statto, I'll go to you with this. There's one fucking injury that is really, really unfortunate in this game. Can you please talk to me about it?
You sound a bit emotional there. So yeah, obviously, our boy Micho did go down injured, and it did look a bit bad. He went off on a stretcher. I haven't heard anything about how bad it is. I don't think anybody has. We're all kind of waiting to see if it's long term, if it's not long term, if it is long term, how long term it is. And yeah, it could potentially be a massive loss for us. However, I don't think it will necessarily be the end of the world. I think there's still enough firepower between Cavallero, between Knockaert, Kearney, Bobby Reid, Kamara, even Cabano, that we're not going to be screwed over, I don't think.
Well, this is the $1 million question now, really, and I don't want us to. I mean, it wasn't the prettiest game, so I don't want to make Mitrovic the big topic. But Danny, if it's an ankle twist, that means Mitro's out for about 3 to 4 weeks. But if there's any ligament damage, it could be months, or maybe even the entire season. But that would be really, really unfortunate. I mean, it's not looking good. What would you say to this? Would you say that we are fine with AK-47, who apparently is still injured for some reason at the moment, or Bobby Reid playing as a forward, or now it's January, we need to actually get our heads together and get a centre forward in now as, insurance?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, please.
He's having a laugh, isn't he? No, I won't swear, just in case. Just in case Will's listening. He's our stats man, is he?
Well, yes, and we can't underestimate how big of a loss he is. He's the top scorer. He's Mitrovic, but we can't be a team that relies on one player.
No, I'd agree with that. We can't be a team that relies on one player, but I think every successful championship team does rely on one striker and a goal scorer. And my issue is not that Mitrovic is the all-round perfect player. It's that he puts the ball in the back of the net, and it's that presence that he has up front. Cavallero, once again scored a worldie, but he never scores goals from the inside the box, like tap-ins. Knockaert doesn't know where the goal is. Bobby Reid's too lightweight to be the out-and-out striker, and Kamara's too hit and miss. I really worry. I don't think there's anybody. I mean, who's our second highest goal scorer at the moment? Does anyone know? Is it Kearney?
I should probably know this.
My probably guess, Kearney or Cavallero.
That'd be my guess, yeah.
It must be Cavallero, I think.
I mean, and they're nowhere near double figures. They got to be on about 6 each. So for me, it's not necessarily about he's our best player. It's more who on earth is going to score the goals through the middle. And for me, none of them are natural goal scorers. I think that the start of the play has to change regardless. And I know I'm open to signing a completely different type of striker. I'm not saying it has to be a like for Mitrovic, but it needs to be someone that scores goals and knows where the back of the net is, because that's something you can't teach. Yeah, I think Kamara could do a job now and then, but we need to see how long term this injury is. I think a lot will unfold in the next week or so as we find out how bad it is. If it's bad, we will sign a replacement. We have to.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I don't think Bobby Decordova is naturally a centre forward. He's a second striker, number 10 sort of player. So I feel like we do need a proper centre forward who can find the back of the net. Because like you said, I don't feel like he has that killer instinct up front. Statto, do you want to add anything to that, mate?
I mean, we have had one game without Mitrovic, and that was the QPR game where obviously Kamara came in. He did a very good job. He scored 2 goals. And obviously, if he can keep up that type of form and he can be consistent with that, then yeah, we're going to be fine. But that's a big question mark around Kamara because he's always been consistently inconsistent. But, people were saying this year that he has tons of corner, he's more of a squad player, and obviously he is injured.
And the argument is, mate, is that he scored a brace when Mitrovic had that yellow card that had him suspended against QPR. So when the opportunity arises, it does seem that AK-47 can take them, but I just don't trust it to be as consistent as that. Danny, I've got a list. Do you have any ideas of people that we could get in to replace Mitrovic if it is quite a hefty time away that we're dealing with here?
Who's available? You put me on the spot there. I think...
Sorry, mate.
That's all right. Billy Sharp's always been someone that scores goals at this level. He's quite limited in how much he can affect the build-up play. So it would be a complete contrast to what we do with Mitrovic. But I'm pretty sure he was the first player to reach like 250 or 300 goals at lower league level. So he knows where the back of the net is, and he's been told by Sheffield United that he's not needed anymore. They've obviously held on to him for half a season just in case it didn't work out for them in the Premier League. Because, of course, if they had gone back down, he's the ideal man to keep. They're obviously going to, stay up this season, and I think they need to evolve now. And he's a championship player, probably a mid-table championship player, but as an emergency, I think we could do a lot worse on loan. Glenn Murray's another one from Brighton. I'm not a massive fan of him, if I'm being honest. But again, he's the one that Mitrovic is chasing the 30-goal record off of. So there's maybe nobody that knows where the back of the net more than he does at this level. Other than that, it's scraps. You might find a gem out there. Dwight Gale's always linked, but I heard that he got injured the other day as well, same day as Mitrovic. What about you? Any ideas?
Yeah, the sort of players I had in mind were, Matic Vidra from Burnley, who scored 21 goals for Derby a couple of seasons ago. Or you've got Andre Gray, who I would take in a heartbeat from Watford. I think he could do a real good job as a centre-forward.
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because that was brought up in the WhatsApp group the other day. I think that's a really good shot. That's definitely the best option I've heard, Andre Gray. He would complement Mitrovic as a partner, but he could also give us a different dimension for games when Mitrovic isn't available. I would actually sign him on a permanent deal because if we don't go up, then he's ideal for next season anyway. And if we do, I think Mitrovic, Gray, and one other would be ideal as a strike force for a newly promoted team. Vidra, I'm not that keen on. I think that ship sailed. We've been linked with him quite a few times, especially when Slav was in charge because of their Watford days. For me, he's more of the knockout Bobby Reid, Cavallero kind of role, as opposed to being the out-and-out focal point of the attack. I don't think he could play through the middle in the same way that Billy Sharp or Andre Gray or Murray could.
What about Shea Adams? Would you take him? He was with, I think it was Birmingham, and he went to Saints, and apparently they're trying to give him a loan back to the Championship for the rest of the season. Do you think Shea Adams would be a good bet? Yeah,
he did well for Birmingham, didn't he? And he's quite a big lad. So I think the physical side of it, I think he would match up. It wouldn't be my preference, to be honest. It would depend what the deal is. If it was a short-term loan, then, I think we've got to take what we can get. But I would prefer Andre Gray. You've got to get on the phone to Tony. That for me, is the one. That's the one.
Fair. And look, let's quickly, before we get to the Parker aim, because I know, I'm very fickle with Scott Parker. I don't think I've ever been so fickle with any manager since Scott Parker arrived. And I know what your thoughts are on Scott Parker. But before we do the
change your mind every single week.
I know. It's not good. I don't mean to either. It's just sometimes I wish we were just constantly shit and being inconsistent all the time. I can't explain it. It's just I know what's happened. You know, it's just one of those things where I think Scott Parker was the wrong appointment for this type of squad, and it's just frustrating. But, you know, he got some things right today, and I think we owe him some praise for actually judging this game correctly. But there was one thing, we went 6 at the back in the 90th minute. And I just want to ask you, Statto, do you think this is a bit much? I mean, we keep protecting a 1-goal lead like it's 4-0, but we had 6 players at the back. We had 4 centre-backs at one point. I mean, there's parking the bus and there's parking the bloody spaceship. What are your thoughts about
that? It's a recurring trend under Parker, isn't it? Like in the last 5 to 10 minutes, he likes to bring on an extra defender and go 5 at the back, and obviously in this instance, going 6 at the back almost. It is a bit much. It is a bit overkill, and one day it will probably come back and bite us, and we'll just get done. And everyone will be jumping on Parker for saying he's too defensive. He was being too kind of naive about this all. Parker's got to have a better plan for how to see out a match and see out a 1-0 win, for example, because this can't really continue.
Yeah, I'd like to make a point about that, actually, with parking the bus, as you say. In general, it's quite a negative thing to do. And I think you invite more pressure onto you. But the Mitrovic injury changed the whole game for me. It's more the height in defence. So they had a big lad up front, Tom Eaves, and it was quite inevitable that as they got desperate going into injury time, they were going to be lumping balls into the box. And we'd lost the height of Mitrovic. Obviously, Kcom hadn't played a full 90 minutes, but he had to stay on because of his height. So for me, it was a no-brainer to bring on Mawson and just try and see out the game. Because naturally, you know, Mitrovic for set pieces and stuff would have been an extra body in the box to help defend that. But you can't bring on a small player in that kind of situation.
One thing I've got to say about Mawson, actually, he did make an amazing clearance. It wasn't a clearance off the line, but he just got in front of Rodak. And I think, you know, that shot, I think it was Tom Eaves taking the shot that he blocked. It was a really, really good piece of defending from Mawson. So it was very good that he came on when he did. So that's kudos to Scott Parker there. And, you know, honestly, offside saved our bacon in the last minute. That was real squeaky bum time there because he almost conceded. Luckily, offside, so it was fine. Look, Danny, I'll go to you. What was your Scott Parker rating for this game then, mate?
I'll give him a 7.5. It wasn't obviously an amazing victory. It was just a solid 1-0. You know, I was quite content with it. You can't go any higher than that because then it disrespects it when we absolutely batter teams. You know, you can't. 7.5. I think that's a fair score. I was very happy with what he did, and no complaints from me this week. It was a massive win.
Nice one. But you also said, you know, in order for Scott Parker to start really getting into your good books, we need to take this on into Middlesbrough. So that's the big thing, isn't it? Especially when the cap is closing.
I think that's vital. You know, it's one thing to put in one good performance in 3. We need to be doing, you know, winning 3 on the bounce, 5 on the bounce. And then all of a sudden, you know, I will change my opinion of Scott Parker. I'm not here to hate on anyone or to wish bad on Fulham. If Fulham are doing well, then, you know, happy days. I've never had the faith in him. And for me, he's got to put that faith into me. We've been far too inconsistent for anyone to have that faith in his ability. You know, the performances, the tactics, the individual errors. There's just no continuity with what he's doing. But now with Hector coming in, the injuries, you know, other than Mitrovic, starting to clean up, hopefully we'll start seeing a regular 11 and a regular performance.
Very good, mate. And Statto, what is your Scott Parker rating, sir?
Okay, I would give him an 8 out of 10. I think, like Danny said earlier in the pod, a successful season is not built on the 4-0 wins at Millwall. It's built on kind of getting those 1-0 wins away from home. And we weren't seeing that at the start of the season, in part due to Parker's tactics. And I think he's kind of developed his game for the benefit of the team. And we're now starting to get results like this. You know, looking at the form of all the teams around us, there's no team that's kind of in form and putting a string of wins together. And really, we have a kind of a platform now to kind of do that ourselves. And it's all, you know, like Danny mentioned, winning the Middlesbrough game is kind of vital for us to do that, because obviously if we don't win Middlesbrough, this game is kind of irrelevant. So yeah, I think a solid 8 out of 10 would be right, because he got it spot on. We got the 1-0 win and we got the 3 points.
All right, and I'm going to join you there. I'm going to say 7.5, because I'm in between both of you, and it's nice and light that way. And I'm going to go with one more question to each of you, and I'll start with you, Danny. Do you think, hand on heart, we will get top 2 this season? Yes or no? Tell us.
Oh,
yeah,
the $1 million question. No. I think we'll finish third.
Yeah.
I think we'll finish third and win the playoffs.
I'm not sure. I've just got this feeling we're going to face Brentford, and I can just imagine the most awful thing, the most disgusting thing would be losing to Brentford at Wembley for the playoff final and them getting promoted. It would be awful. But, I mean, you don't think top 2 is doable, even with the gap closing at the moment?
No, it's definitely doable, but my faith in Scott Parker is not quite 100% yet. I'm certainly not calling him for him to be sacked or anything, and you know, in the next month or so will tell, because we've got 5 or 6 games coming up against teams that we should be beating, and our final run-in is really difficult. So this is the time when we'll see if we are capable of closing that gap. West Brom have only won 1 in 7, and Leeds have only won 1 in 6. So I'm not suggesting that they're not catchable. It's just, are we capable of putting in second or top 2 form for the rest of the season? If Mitrovic is injured, I don't think so. I just don't see it. My theory's always been that the last game at Griffin Park is going to be Fulham against Brentford for the playoffs. Yeah, a massive occasion, and one that I don't think the heart would be able to take. But
yeah,
that's my theory. I can see the top 2 staying in top 2, and it being between Fulham and Brentford for the playoffs.
Oh God, Statto, I need your thoughts on this one. Are you of the same mind, mate?
It always feels like it's written in the stars, isn't it, that we're going to face Brentford in the playoff final. And, you know, they're moving to a new stadium next year, and it's going to coincide with them going to the Premier League, and it's all going to be lovely for them and everything. But I think, you know, a few weeks ago in December, if you had asked me if we'd get top 2, my answer would be no. West Brom and Leeds were running away with it. It looked like they were they were going to get top 2, and there would be no one challenging. But the thing with the Championship, it's a very unpredictable league, and you know there's no way that teams can maintain form all season. Obviously, we did, which was a giant fluke, and that's not going to happen again. I don't think anyone believes that it will happen again. And Leeds and West Brom will continue to drop points. It's just whether, like Danny said, we can maintain kind of a promotion type run or form towards the end as we kind of head into the second half of the season. I like to think we can, but like I said, I just don't think there's enough for us to get automatics. And I don't know if it's Parker, I don't know if it's just the team in general, but it feels like we're lacking something. But yeah, these next few weeks will be telling.
Quite right, and hopefully, you know, we've got Mitrovic injured. We don't know how long for, but if you are serious about chasing that 7-point gap, it's getting smaller. Then we use the window. It's a blessing in disguise. Let's go for it, be ambitious, and try and make the top 2. But I agree. I think it's going to be Brentford and where we're going to lose. Anyway, so thank you very much. I'll end that there, guys. Thank you very much to my lovely co-hosts for this week. We'll be back in a couple of days where Frenchie and Morgan will be doing a player focus on the legendary Mark Schwarzer, along with a preview of our home game to Borough under the lights with some hopefully Mitro injury news. If you like what you hear, spread the word like margarine and say to yourself, I can't believe it's not professional punditry. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we have a website where you can read and listen to all our exclusive player interviews by Dannyboi himself. Thank you very much.
Fulham.